She was dragged out of the church with her baby after her husband's funeral, until a millionaire. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. The morning was cold, the kind of cold that chills you to the bone and makes you want to stay wrapped in blankets. Yet, there was no escaping the harsh reality of Lena's situation. The church had been packed with mourners, yet she felt utterly alone. The passing of her husband, Daniel, had left her shattered, and her grief was only deepened by the cold, unforgiving atmosphere around her. As the service ended, she clutched her baby, Emma, close to her chest, trying to find comfort in her child's warmth. The funeral was a blur, the quiet whispers of the attendees, the somber faces, the priest's words fading into the background. But one thing was painfully clear. This was the end of a chapter in her life, and she didn't know what the next one would bring. As the last of the mourners filed out of the church, Lena was walking toward the exit when the door was flung open. Two figures, her husband's estranged relatives, stepped in front of her. They were silent, their cold expressions betraying no sympathy, no comfort. "You're not welcome here," one of them sneered. Lena froze, her heart pounding in her chest. "Excuse me," she whispered, not sure if she had heard correctly. "You heard us. You've already taken everything you could from this family. Now it's time for you to leave." The words stung like a slap, and before Lena could react, they grabbed her by the arm and started dragging her out of the church. "Stop, please," Lena cried, her grip on her baby tightening. But the relatives weren't listening. They were determined to humiliate her, to make sure she knew her place. She was a widow, a young mother with nothing left, nothing but the memories of a marriage that had been far from perfect. As they reached the church steps, Lena's legs wobbled, and she stumbled, her shoes slipping on the wet stone. One of the relatives let out an exasperated sigh, and with a cruel jerk, they yanked her forward. "This is where you belong," they muttered. Just as Lena's strength was beginning to fail her, a car screeched to a halt beside her. The sound of the engine revving sharply pulled her out of her daze. She looked up, startled, and saw a tall, well-dressed man stepping out of the car. He had dark hair and sharp features, his presence imposing yet oddly comforting. Without a word, he moved toward Lena, effortlessly brushing past the relatives who had been tormenting her. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. The relatives, taken aback by his sudden arrival, hesitated, momentarily unsure of how to respond. "No," the taller relative snapped, "just making sure this woman knows her place." But the man didn't flinch. He turned his attention back to Lena, his gaze softening as he saw the exhaustion and fear in her eyes. "Get in the car," he said gently. Lena blinked, her thoughts scattered. She hadn't even had time to process what was happening before the man was opening the door of his car for her. She hesitated, glancing down at her baby. This stranger, this man who had just appeared out of nowhere, was offering her an escape. A chance to get away from the humiliation and the cruelty. She didn't know if she could trust him, but at that moment, it felt like the only choice. Slowly, with shaking hands, she stepped into the car, clutching Emma tightly to her chest. As the car drove away, Lena couldn't help but look out the window, wondering who this man was and why he had chosen to intervene in her life. The streetlights blurred as they passed, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Lena allowed herself to breathe. For a moment, at least, she was safe. It's been a few hours since Lena had been driven away from the church, and her mind still raced. The man, whose name she had yet to learn, had driven her to a quiet neighborhood far from the chaos. The car finally pulled to a stop in front of a modest home with a well-maintained lawn. The kind of house that screamed comfort but not opulence. As the engine cut off, Lena slowly looked at the man, her hands still clutching Emma tightly. She hadn't spoken much during the drive, too rattled by what had just happened and unsure of what to expect. He turned to her, his expression unreadable yet calm. "Come inside," he said, his voice soothing but firm. "You can rest here for as long as you need." Lena hesitated, glancing down at her daughter before looking back at him. There was something about him, something trustworthy in the way he spoke, the way he held himself. Still, Every part of her screamed to be cautious. "Why are you helping me?" she finally asked, her voice shaky. The man paused, his gaze softening. "Sometimes, people need help, even when they don't ask for it. I could see you were in trouble, and I'm not the kind of man who ignores that." His honesty resonated with her, but Lena still wasn't sure. Was he really trying to help, or was there something more to his involvement in her life? She had no choice but to trust him for now. She had nothing left. Slowly, she climbed out of the car, keeping Emma close to her chest. The man opened the door for her, and they walked into the house together. The interior of the house was warm, with soft lighting and comfortable furniture that made Lena feel, for the first time today, a small sense of relief. It was nothing extravagant, but it was clean, inviting, and above all, safe. "Take a seat." The man gestured toward the living room. "I'll make us something to drink." Lena sat down, cradling her daughter in her arms, her mind still spinning from the events of the morning. As she glanced around, she noticed small details that stood out. A family photo on the mantel, a guitar leaning against the wall, and a collection of books neatly arranged on a shelf. It was the kind of home that reflected a person who cared, someone who had lived through their own struggles, but had managed to create something stable. The man returned to the living room a few minutes later, holding a tray with 2 mugs of steaming tea. He handed one to Lena, then sat down opposite her. "I know this is all very overwhelming," he said gently, "but you're safe here. You don't have to worry about anything." For now, Lena took a sip of the tea, the warmth spreading through her, and felt a small wave of gratitude. It was the first time in what felt like forever that she didn't have to constantly watch her back. "Thank you," she said, her voice quieter now. "You don't have to do this. I don't even know your name." The man smiled, though it was brief and almost sad. "My name is Michael," he replied. "And don't worry about it. I just want to make sure you and your daughter are okay." The sincerity in his voice struck a chord with her. Lena had always been independent, but after losing her husband and then being thrown out like that, it felt like the world was falling apart around her. The weight of everything was finally starting to hit her. "I don't know how to thank you," Lena murmured, her voice thick with emotion. Michael seemed to understand without her saying anything else. "No need for thanks," he said. "We all go through tough times, and sometimes, the best thing we can do is help someone else get through it." He paused, as if considering something before adding, "You're welcome to stay here for as long as you need. I have plenty of room, and I can help you get back on your feet." Lena looked at him, surprised by his generosity. She didn't know what his motives were, but she didn't feel threatened. She felt a strange sense of calm in his presence, like he genuinely cared. "I'll do whatever I can to repay you," Lena said, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael shook his head. "No need to repay anything," he said firmly. "Just take care of yourself and your daughter. That's all I ask." As the night wore on, Lena found herself relaxing for the first time that day. She let Emma play with a few toys Michael had brought out for her, and the two of them sat quietly, drinking tea and talking. Michael didn't push her for answers. He didn't ask about her past or why she was in such a desperate situation. He simply listened when she spoke, offering the kind of understanding she hadn't realized she needed. Lena didn't know what would come next. She didn't know why Michael was helping her, but for the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to rest. It was the first step toward healing. It was a small step, but it was enough to give her a glimmer of hope in the midst of all the darkness. Days passed since Lena and her daughter, Emma, arrived at Michael's house. The tension that had weighed heavily on Lena's chest seemed to ease with each passing moment. Michael had kept his word. He never pushed her for answers, never asked too many questions. He simply allowed her to breathe, to exist without the constant pressure she had been under. But the calm was fleeting. As Lena sat on the porch one afternoon, cradling Emma in her arms, her mind wandered back to her life before everything changed. Daniel, her late husband, had been her rock, the man who promised to protect her and their daughter from the harsh world. But now, she had to face it alone. As if reading her thoughts, Michael appeared at the doorway. He had been out for the day, taking care of some work-related matters, but he had come back early. "How are you holding up?" he asked gently, sitting down beside her. Lena shrugged, her eyes not meeting his. "I'm managing," she replied quietly, though the uncertainty in her voice was evident. Michael didn't push her to say more. Instead, he leaned forward slightly, his tone soft yet serious. "You know, if you ever want to talk about anything, I'm here, he said. Lena glanced at him, studying his face. There was kindness in his eyes, but something deeper too, something that hinted at a shared understanding of pain. She nodded slowly but didn't respond. She wasn't ready to open up yet. Not to him, not to anyone. Michael noticed her reluctance and didn't press further. Instead, he stood up and extended his hand to her. Come on, let's take a walk. I'll show you the local park nearby. You can get some fresh air. It might do us both some good. Despite her initial hesitation, Lena found herself agreeing. She needed a break from the house, from her thoughts. And perhaps, just maybe, the distraction would help her clear her mind. As they walked through the quiet neighborhood, Lena began to relax. The gentle rustling of the trees and the soft chirping of birds made the world feel a little less overwhelming. She was grateful for this moment of peace, even though her heart still ached. They reached the park and found a bench near a small pond. The sight of the water, the ripples glistening in the afternoon sun, calmed Lena more than she expected. She sat down and breathed deeply, closing her eyes for a moment to take in the tranquility. Michael, standing a few feet away, kept a respectful distance but didn't leave her alone. She could feel his presence, steady and unwavering, like a silent promise that she wasn't alone in her struggles. I'm sorry, she finally whispered, breaking the silence. Michael turned to face her, his expression gentle. What for? For all of this. For showing up in your life like this, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I don't even know why you're helping me. I have nothing to offer you. Michael took a deep breath, as if gathering his thoughts. Lena, everyone deserves help when they're at their lowest. You're not the first person I've helped, and you won't be the last. But you don't need to repay me. Not now, not ever. His words touched her deeply, and for the first time since she had arrived at his house, Lena felt a tear slip down her cheek. It wasn't out of sadness, though, more out of relief. She had been holding everything inside for so long, and it felt like the weight of her grief was finally being lifted, even if just a little. She looked up at Michael, her eyes red but grateful. Thank you, she whispered, her voice barely audible. He smiled at her, a small but sincere smile. You don't need to thank me. You're safe here. That's all that matters. Lena nodded, her throat tight. She didn't know how long she could stay in this borrowed safety, but for now it was enough. The walk back to Michael's house felt different. It was no longer just a walk to escape her thoughts. It was a walk toward a new beginning. As they arrived back at the house, Lena felt something shift inside her. The walls she had built around her heart were starting to crumble, and she didn't know if that was a good thing or not. But for the first time in a long while, she wasn't scared of the change. That night, Lena put Emma to bed and sat down in the living room, the quiet, settling around her like a warm blanket. Michael had gone to his study to finish up some work, but before retreating, he had left her with one last piece of advice. Take it one day at a time, Lena. You don't have to have everything figured out right now. Just take it slow. She smiled softly to herself, grateful for his calm presence in her life. Maybe, just maybe, she could start over. She didn't have to have all the answers, but perhaps she could find a way to live again. The days slowly passed, and Lena began to adjust to her new life. She had been staying with Michael for almost 2 weeks now, and every day, she felt a little more like herself. Michael's home had become a safe haven, a place where she could breathe, think, and begin to heal. The peace she found there was a stark contrast to the chaos she had left behind. Despite the calm, there was a part of her that couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. One evening, as she sat in the living room with Emma, playing with her daughter's blocks, Michael came in from the study with a look on his face that she couldn't quite read. Lena, he began, his voice unusually serious. I need to talk to you about something. Lena's heart skipped a beat. She had become so accustomed to the quiet and steady rhythm of life in the house that the sudden shift in his tone made her feel uneasy. What's wrong? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Michael sat down across from her, his eyes locking onto hers. I've been thinking about how to help you move forward, he said, his tone softening. I want to offer you more than just a place to stay. I want to help you rebuild, to get back on your feet. Lena blinked, a knot forming in her stomach. What do you mean? She asked. Michael took a deep breath before continuing. I have connections, people I can introduce you to. I could help you find a job, give you a fresh start. His words were sincere, but something in the back of her mind made her hesitate. She had been relying on Michael's kindness, his quiet support. But now, the idea of needing more help from him felt like too much. I don't know, Lena whispered, looking down at her hands. I don't want to feel like I'm taking advantage of you. Michael reached across the table, gently lifting her chin so she would look at him. Lena, you're not taking advantage of me, he said, his voice warm and reassuring. This is what I want to do. You deserve a chance to rebuild your life, and if I can help with that, I will. She looked into his eyes and saw nothing but honesty. But even so, Lena's pride flared. She had always prided herself on being independent, on not needing anyone's help. I can't keep living off your kindness, she murmured, almost to herself. Michael's expression softened. You don't have to live off anyone's kindness, Lena. You're not here because I'm doing you a favor. You're here because I care about you and Emma, and I want to see you both succeed. His words lingered in the air between them. Lena felt the weight of his offer, the gravity of what it meant, but she still wasn't sure she was ready to accept it. She had spent so long surviving on her own, doing everything she could to hold her family together after Daniel's death, that relying on anyone else felt like a betrayal of herself. But the truth was, she needed help. She couldn't keep pretending she had it all together. And Michael, though a stranger in some ways, had proven time and time again that he cared. I don't know what to do, Lena admitted softly. I don't know if I'm ready to accept your help. Michael smiled gently, standing up and walking over to her. You don't have to decide right now, he said, resting a hand on her shoulder. Take your time. When you're ready, I'll be here. The sincerity in his voice made her heart ache. She knew he meant every word. The next few days passed in a blur. Michael kept his distance, giving Lena the space she needed to think. She continued to care for Emma, spending time at the park, and slowly, she began to consider his offer. She'd never been one to rely on others, but it wasn't about dependence. It was about building a future, for herself and for Emma. One afternoon, as Lena sat in the kitchen, her thoughts swirling, she heard a soft knock at the door. When she opened it, Michael stood there, holding a large envelope. I thought you might want to see this, he said, handing it to her. It's a job opportunity, one of the people I know. I thought it might be a good fit for you. Lena took the envelope, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. She opened it, finding a job offer for a position at a local company, a position that would allow her to use her skills in marketing, something she had studied before becoming a stay-at-home mom. The salary was decent, and the benefits were good. She stared at the offer for a long moment, the possibilities running through her mind. It's up to you, Michael said gently. But I think it's a good opportunity. Lena looked at him, her heart racing. This was it, the chance she had been looking for. A chance to rebuild her life. But even as she held the offer in her hands, she still felt a pang of doubt. Was she ready to move forward? Was she ready to let go of the past? She took a deep breath, then slowly nodded. I'll take it, she said, her voice steady. Michael smiled, relief and pride in his eyes. I knew you would. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the first step toward her new life. Lena had a long road ahead of her, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was moving in the right direction. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to start again. The following week, Lena stepped into her first day at the new job. She was nervous. No, terrified, but she refused to let it show. The world had felt so heavy for so long, and now, finally, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. She had taken that first step, and today, she would begin to build something new. The job was at a small marketing firm located in downtown, not far from Michael's house. As she parked her car outside the building, Lena took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past few months still pressing down on her. The memory of being thrown out of the church, the overwhelming grief after Daniel's death, all of it felt like a different life now. But as she walked into the office, the reality of her new beginning sank in. The office was bustling, with a handful of employees already working at their desks, typing away at their computers, making phone calls. Lena felt like a fish out of water as she entered, unsure of where to go or what to do. But as she stood there, frozen, one of the employees noticed her and smiled. You must be Lena. Welcome, the woman said warmly, standing up and offering her hand. I'm Jessica. I'll show you around. Lena shook her hand, her nerves easing slightly. Jessica led her through the office, showing her the break room, the conference room, and introducing her to the other staff members. Everyone seemed kind, But Lena couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider. "Don't worry," Jessica said, noticing her unease. "It takes a while to get used to a new place. You'll settle in." As the day went on, Lena found herself feeling more comfortable. She dove into her tasks, updating marketing materials, brainstorming ideas for new campaigns, and even helping out with some administrative work. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was contributing to something important. As the workday came to a close, Lena packed up her things and left the office, a small sense of accomplishment swelling in her chest. She was exhausted but proud of herself. She had survived her first day, and that was more than she had dared to hope for just a few weeks ago. When she arrived home, Michael was sitting on the porch, reading a book. He looked up and smiled as she approached. "How was it?" he asked, his voice soft. Lena smiled back, her face lighting up with a sense of relief. "It was good," she said. "A little overwhelming, but good." Michael closed the book and stood up, walking toward her. "I knew you'd do great," he said with a smile. "It's just the beginning. You've got this." Lena felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. Michael had been her rock, her constant source of support, and she didn't know where she would be without him. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice full of emotion. "I don't know how to repay you for everything you've done for me." Michael shook his head, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to repay me. Just focus on taking care of yourself and Emma. That's enough for me." Over the next few weeks, Lena settled into a rhythm. She worked hard at the marketing firm, slowly gaining confidence in her skills and abilities. Every day was a small victory. Michael continued to offer his support without asking for anything in return, and Lena started to feel like she was finally getting her life back on track. But as time passed, Lena couldn't ignore the growing feelings she had for Michael. She had always known he was kind and generous, but now she saw him in a different light. His quiet strength, his unwavering support, and the way he made her feel safe. She had never felt this way about anyone before. It scared her. She wasn't sure if she was ready for another relationship, especially not with someone like him. She had lost so much already, and the thought of opening her heart again made her nervous. One evening, after a long day at work, Lena sat on the porch, her mind racing. Michael came out to join her, his presence a calming force. "You seem distant," he said, sitting down beside her. "What's going on?" Lena hesitated, unsure of how to put her feelings into words. "I don't know," she said finally, her voice shaky. "I just feel confused. I've been through so much, and I don't know if I'm ready for anything more." Michael's expression softened, and he placed a hand on hers. "Lena, you don't have to rush into anything," he said gently. "Take your time. If and when you're ready, we can figure things out together." His words brought a sense of relief, and for the first time in weeks, Lena felt like she could breathe. She didn't have to have all the answers right away. She could take her time, one step at a time. That night, as Lena lay in bed, she felt a sense of peace that had eluded her for so long. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she was no longer walking it alone. With Michael by her side, and a future full of possibilities, Lena felt ready to take on whatever came next. The next morning, as Lena prepared for work, she couldn't help but smile. It had been a long road, but she was finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she was hopeful. And that was enough. The weeks continued to slip by, and Lena was settling into her new routine. Her work at the marketing firm was challenging, but with every day, she felt more capable, more confident. There were moments of doubt, of course, but she was starting to believe in herself again, something she hadn't done in years. Emma was thriving too, growing more playful and animated, her laughter filling the house in ways it hadn't in the past. Michael, as always, was there. He was patient, kind, and steady, the rock she could lean on whenever the weight of everything seemed too heavy. But something was changing inside her. The more time she spent with Michael, the more she noticed the way his presence comforted her, the way his small gestures of care melted her walls just a little more every day. It was a feeling she hadn't expected. After everything she'd been through, she hadn't thought she was ready for anything new, especially not love. Yet, Michael's quiet strength, his unwavering support, made it impossible to ignore the growing affection in her heart. She wasn't sure how to navigate this feeling, though. What did it mean? Could she allow herself to fall for him? One evening, After a particularly long day at work, Lena found herself in the kitchen, preparing dinner when Michael walked in. He had a different energy tonight. He seemed like he had something on his mind. She glanced at him over her shoulder. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice soft. Michael hesitated, then walked over to her. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice serious but kind. "About everything." Lena's heart skipped a beat. She had been waiting for this moment, but she didn't know if she was ready. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. He took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about how you're doing, how you're really doing. And I know it's been a lot of change for you, and I don't want you to feel pressured or anything. But I care about you, Lena. I care about you and Emma." Lena's pulse quickened as his words sank in. She turned to face him fully, her hands gripping the edge of the counter. "Michael," she began. But her voice trailed off. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know if she could say it yet. The truth was, she cared about him too. More than she had expected, more than she was ready for. But she couldn't ignore the fear that had been building up inside her. She had been through so much pain, and the thought of opening herself up again was terrifying. "I care about you too," she finally said, her voice barely a whisper. "But I'm not sure if I'm ready for anything more. I've been hurt before, Michael. I don't want to risk losing someone again." Michael stepped closer, his eyes soft, but unwavering. "Lena, I'm not asking you to do anything you're not ready for. But I want you to know that I'm here, for you and for Emma. No matter what. If you need time, I'll give it to you. I'm not going anywhere." His words were a balm to the wound she had kept buried for so long. The honesty, the tenderness in his voice, made her heart ache. She could see it now. He wasn't asking her to jump into something, but he was giving her the space to decide. That was all she had needed to hear. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes starting to well up. Michael reached out and gently touched her arm, offering a small but reassuring smile. "You're welcome. Just take it one step at a time. And when you're ready, we'll figure it out together." Lena nodded, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. It wasn't an instant solution, but it was a beginning, a step toward healing, toward opening her heart again. The next few days were full of normalcy. Lena continued to work, continued to care for Emma, and continued to try to make sense of her feelings. Michael, as always, was patient and understanding. He never rushed her, never made her feel like she had to make a decision. It was a quiet kind of support that made Lena feel safe. It was on the weekend that things began to shift again. Michael had been quiet, distracted even, but when Lena asked him what was going on, he finally spoke up. "I've been thinking," he began, "about how you're doing, and I don't want to put any pressure on you. But I think it's time we talk about something." Lena looked at him, unsure of what he meant. "What is it?" "I'm offering you a way to move forward. Not just with your job or your life, but with us. I want you to know that there's no rush, and if you're not ready, I'll understand. But I care about you, and I think we could be something more." His words hung in the air, and Lena took a moment to process them. It wasn't a proposal, not in the traditional sense, but it was an invitation, a chance to take the next step, to truly open herself to the possibility of a future with Michael. She thought about everything she had been through, about how far she had come, and how much she still had to give. And she realized that maybe, just maybe, she was ready to try again. "I don't know if I'm completely ready," Lena said, her voice steady but vulnerable. "But I'm willing to try. I trust you, Michael. And I think we could have something special." Michael's face broke into a soft smile, and he took her hand in his. "We don't have to rush. We can take it slow, Lena. We'll figure it out together." And for the first time in a long time, Lena felt hope stirring inside her. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, she felt like she could face it with him by her side. As the weeks went on, Lena's life began to fall into a rhythm she hadn't imagined possible just a few months ago. Her work was demanding but rewarding. She was learning quickly, and the team at the marketing firm had grown to be supportive, offering her advice when she needed it and encouraging her growth. It wasn't the glamorous career she had once dreamed of, but it was a career nonetheless, and it felt good to finally stand on her own 2 feet. Michael continued to be her anchor through it all, a quiet presence that gave her the stability she had been lacking for so long. They hadn't defined what was happening between them, but their bond was undeniable. He respected her space and her need to move at her own pace, but it was clear to both of them that something deeper was starting to take root. Lena couldn't ignore the growing affection she had for him. She found herself thinking about him even when they weren't together, remembering the way his eyes softened when he spoke to her. The way his smile made her heart skip a beat. It was strange to feel this way again, after all the heartache she had been through, but she couldn't deny it. She was beginning to care for Michael in a way that was both comforting and frightening. One evening, after a particularly long week at work, Lena and Michael found themselves sitting on the porch, watching the sun set over the horizon. Emma was inside, playing with her toys, and the house was quiet. It was the perfect moment for a conversation that had been long overdue. "Lena," Michael began, his voice low but steady. "I know we haven't talked about this much, but I want you to know how much I care about you." Lena looked at him, her heart racing. She wasn't sure if she was ready for this conversation, but she knew it had to happen sooner or later. "I care about you too," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm still scared. Scared of what could happen. Scared of what I might lose if I let myself feel more for you." Michael nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I understand, Lena. I know you've been through a lot, and I don't want to rush you into anything you're not ready for. But I think it's important for you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for the long haul, whether you're ready for a relationship or not." His words were comforting, but they also made her heart ache. It was exactly what she needed to hear, yet the fear still lingered. She had been hurt so deeply before, and the thought of opening her heart again felt like walking a tightrope. "I'm not sure if I can do this," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't want to be hurt again, and I don't want to drag you into something that I can't give you." Michael reached out and took her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "Lena, you don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to have all the answers right now. What I'm asking for is simple, just the chance to be here for you, to support you, and to see where this goes, together." His words sank in, and for the first time in a long time, Lena allowed herself to breathe. Maybe she didn't have all the answers, maybe she didn't know what the future held, but she could start by being honest with herself. She could take it one step at a time, and she could trust Michael, even if it was scary. "Okay," she said softly, meeting his gaze. "Let's take it one step at a time." Michael smiled, a warmth spreading across his face. "That's all I'm asking for," he said, his voice full of relief. They sat in silence for a while, simply enjoying each other's company as the sky grew darker. It was a moment of peace, a moment where Lena allowed herself to just be. As the days passed, Lena began to open up more, allowing herself to be vulnerable with Michael. She talked about her fears, her dreams, and her past. Michael listened without judgment, offering his support when she needed it, and giving her the space to process when she didn't. Slowly, she began to realize that she wasn't alone in this journey anymore. She had Michael, and she had Emma, and together, they could build something beautiful. One afternoon, a few weeks later, Lena was sitting in the park with Emma, enjoying a rare day off from work. Michael had been away for a business trip, but he had promised to return by the evening. As she watched Emma play on the swings, Lena found herself thinking about how far she had come. She had gone from being a grieving widow, struggling to survive, to becoming a woman who was learning to live again. The road hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. Michael's support had helped her find her footing, and her own strength had carried her forward. As the evening approached, Lena made her way home, her heart light with the promise of a fresh start. When she arrived, Michael was waiting for her on the porch, a small bouquet of flowers in his hands. He stood up as she approached, a smile on his face. "For you," he said softly, handing her the flowers. Lena's heart skipped a beat as she took the bouquet, feeling a rush of emotion. "Thank you," she whispered, touched by the gesture. Michael took a step closer, his eyes meeting hers. "Lena, I know we've talked about taking things slow, but I just want you to know that I'm in this with you. Whatever happens, I'm here." Lena smiled, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm here too," she said, her voice steady. "And I'm ready to see where this goes." In that moment, with the sun setting behind them and the future stretched out before her, Lena finally allowed herself to believe in the possibility of love again. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, she was willing to find out. And that was enough. It had been a few months since Lena and Michael had started exploring what was beginning to feel like something more than just a friendship. Lena had come a long way since she first arrived at Michael's house, unsure of what the future would hold. Her confidence had grown, and the weight of her past, though still present, no longer defined her. She was beginning to realize that she had more control over her life than she had thought possible. Her job at the marketing firm was going well, and she had even begun to take on more responsibility, showing the world, and herself, that she was capable of standing on her own. But even more significant than her professional growth was the shift in her personal life. Michael, who had always been supportive, patient, and understanding, had become more than just a friend or someone helping her rebuild her life. He had become someone she was learning to trust in ways she hadn't expected. Every time they spent time together, Lena felt herself growing closer to him, her heart opening a little more with each passing day. Still, she couldn't completely ignore the voice of doubt in the back of her mind. Was she truly ready to embrace a future with Michael, knowing how much she had already been through? Could she really let herself love again? That question lingered, but it wasn't as consuming as it had once been. One evening, Michael invited her to a local event. It was a charity gala, and though it wasn't exactly her scene, she agreed to go with him. Lena had never been to an event like this before. Elegant dresses, tuxedos, and the kind of people who seemed to belong in that world. As she stood in front of her mirror, getting ready, Lena's nerves started to flare. She adjusted the strap of her dress, unsure of how she would fit into this high society world. But Michael had asked her to come, and that meant something to her. When Michael arrived to pick her up, he was dressed impeccably in a sharp suit that only enhanced his already undeniable presence. He looked at her, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice full of sincerity. Lena blushed slightly, feeling both flattered and unsure. "I'm not used to this kind of thing," she admitted. "You'll be fine," Michael reassured her, offering his arm. "Just be yourself." As they arrived at the gala, Lena couldn't help but feel a bit out of place. The crowd around them was polished and well-dressed, and she felt like an outsider in a world that didn't quite seem to belong to her. But Michael was there beside her, a steady presence that grounded her in the midst of the glittering crowd. He introduced her to people, made sure she was comfortable, and always kept her close. His attention was unwavering, and Lena realized that for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel completely invisible. As the night went on, Lena began to relax. She found herself laughing at some of the conversations and even engaging in a few of her own. Michael's friends were kind and didn't treat her any differently, and before she knew it, she was enjoying herself more than she had expected. The evening felt like a world of possibilities opening up before her, and the fears that had once consumed her didn't seem as daunting. It was during a quiet moment later in the evening that Michael took Lena outside for some fresh air. The cool breeze brushed against her skin as they stepped onto the balcony, away from the noise and the hustle of the gala. Michael looked at her, his expression more serious than before. "I've been thinking," he started, his voice calm, yet with an intensity that immediately caught Lena's attention. "I know we've been taking things slowly, and I respect that. But I want you to know something." Lena turned to face him, her heart beating a little faster. "What is it?" she asked. "I'm here for you, Lena," he said, his voice low but steady. "And I know we've both been through a lot, but I believe in what we have together. I want to be with you for real, not just as friends, but as something more." The words hung in the air between them. Lena felt a rush of emotion, a mixture of fear, uncertainty, and something else, a sense of hope that she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. She looked at Michael, his eyes filled with sincerity, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to see the possibility of a future together. "I don't know if I'm ready to make that leap," Lena admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I've been hurt before, and I'm scared of falling again." Michael reached out and gently took her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "Lena, you don't have to be ready right now," he said softly. "I'm not rushing you, and I'll wait for you as long as it takes. But I want you to know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." His words settled into her heart, and for the first time in months, Lena felt like she could trust someone again. She wasn't sure where this journey would take her, but for the first time, she felt ready to take the next step. "I don't know what the future holds," she said, her voice steady now, "but I want to find out with you." Michael smiled, his eyes filled with relief and joy. "That's all I need to hear," he said, pulling her into a gentle hug. As they stood there on the balcony, Lena realized that the walls she had built around her heart were beginning to crumble, piece by piece. She wasn't completely healed, and she wasn't completely ready for everything that lay ahead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. It had been a month since the conversation on the balcony, and Lena was starting to feel like her life was moving in a direction she had only dreamed of. The weight of her past, though still present, didn't consume her as it once had. Every day, she woke up with a renewed sense of purpose, and while there were moments of doubt, the bond she shared with Michael grew stronger with each passing day. She had started to open her heart again, piece by piece, and it felt like a fragile but beautiful process. At work, things were going well. Lena was gaining more confidence in her role, taking on bigger projects and getting positive feedback from her colleagues and supervisors. She still couldn't believe how far she'd come in such a short time. What had once felt like a life full of endless struggle was now full of possibilities. Her relationship with Michael had progressed too, though they had taken things slow, allowing their connection to grow naturally. They had spent quiet evenings together, shared laughter, and slowly begun to build the foundation for something real. But even as they grew closer, Lena couldn't help but wonder what it would mean to move forward. Was she truly ready to open herself up to a future with Michael? Would the past always hold her back, or could she truly let go and embrace the love that was being offered to her? These questions lingered in her mind, but there was no rush to find answers. She and Michael had built something meaningful, and she was learning to trust that whatever happened, they would navigate it together. One weekend, Michael invited Lena and Emma to his family's cabin for a few days. It was a getaway, a chance to relax, and Michael's way of showing her that he wanted to create memories, not just be a part of her day-to-day life. The thought of spending time with Michael's family made Lena nervous, but she agreed. It would be a chance to see how they interacted in a more intimate setting. As they drove to the cabin, Lena felt her heart race. She had never been to Michael's family's place before, and while she was excited, she also couldn't shake the nerves. Michael noticed her unease and reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "Don't worry," he said with a reassuring smile. "It's just a weekend away. Nothing big. Just us, some family, and the quiet of the woods." Lena smiled, trying to relax. She trusted him, and she knew that whatever happened, she wasn't alone in this. When they arrived at the cabin, Lena was immediately taken by the beauty of the place. Nestled in the woods, it was cozy and inviting, with a large porch that overlooked a lake. The sound of the water lapping against the shore was soothing, and the fresh air was a welcome change from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Michael's family was warm and welcoming, and they quickly made Lena feel at ease. His parents, though reserved at first, soon opened up, sharing stories of Michael's childhood and their family's history. Emma, ever the social butterfly, immediately warmed up to everyone, running around the cabin and making friends with Michael's nieces and nephews. The weekend passed in a blur of laughter, good food, and quiet moments spent on the porch, watching the sunset. But it wasn't just the beautiful setting that made Lena's heart swell. It was the way Michael interacted with his family. She saw a side of him that she hadn't before, a man who was deeply connected to his roots, who cared about his family and made sure they knew it. As they sat around the fire on the last evening of their trip, Michael pulled Lena aside. The others were busy talking, but Michael's attention was entirely focused on her. "I'm glad you came with me this weekend," he said softly. "It means a lot to me." Lena smiled, her heart fluttering. "I'm glad I came too," she said. "It's been nice to see this side of you." Michael's expression softened, and for a moment, there was a vulnerability in his eyes that made Lena's chest tighten. "I want to build a life with you, Lena," he said quietly, his voice filled with sincerity. "I know we've been taking things slow, and I don't want to rush you, but I can't help how I feel. I'm ready to take that next step with you, whenever you're ready." Lena's heart raced. She had never expected to hear those words. Not so soon. Not when she still wasn't entirely sure of what the future held. But as she looked at Michael, his face full of hope, she realized that for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of what the future could bring. She had spent so long holding herself back, afraid of getting hurt again, afraid of losing someone else. But Michael had shown her what it meant to trust, to love without expectation, and to allow herself to be vulnerable. "I'm ready," Lena said, her voice steady now. "I'm ready to take that next step with you." Michael's face lit up, and he pulled her into a gentle embrace. For a moment, they just stood there, holding each other by the firelight, the crackling sound of the flames filling the space around them. The uncertainty that had once plagued Lena's heart began to fade, replaced with a quiet sense of certainty. This was the beginning of something new, something beautiful. As they drove back from the cabin the next day, Lena couldn't stop smiling. She wasn't sure what the future held, but with Michael by her side, she knew she was ready to face it. They had already overcome so much, and together, they would continue to navigate the challenges that lay ahead. The love they shared was still new, still fragile in some ways, but it was strong enough to hold them both. And that was enough for her. As the weeks passed, Lena felt like her life had finally found its rhythm. The steady support from Michael and the progress she had made at work had transformed her into someone she no longer recognized. The fears that once controlled her life, fears of not being enough, of losing everything, began to fade into the background. Every morning, she woke up feeling a little more like herself, and each day, she grew more confident in the love that was blossoming between her and Michael. They had been taking things slow, but both of them knew that something real was developing between them. There was no rush, no pressure, just two people who were discovering how to love and trust again. Michael's patience and consistency had given Lena the space she needed to heal, and in turn, she found herself giving him more of her heart with each passing day. But even as they grew closer, life, as it often does, threw its curveballs. One day, Lena received a call from her old landlord, the one she had lived with after Daniel's passing. The apartment she had left behind months ago was now being sold, and the landlord had a few items of Lena's left in storage that she could pick up. The news stirred up memories, some good, some painful, but it was something she needed to face. Michael noticed the change in her demeanor as she hung up the phone. He could see the hesitation in her eyes, the weight of the past starting to creep back in. "What's wrong?" he asked, concern lining his voice. "It's the landlord," Lena replied softly. "There are a few things left in the old apartment that I need to pick up. I wasn't expecting this, but I think I need to go get them." Michael nodded, his expression understanding. "Do you want me to go with you?" he asked. Lena hesitated. She didn't want to burden him with the past she was trying to leave behind, but she also knew that facing the memories alone would be too overwhelming. "I think it would be helpful," she admitted. I haven't been back there since everything happened, and it feels like opening old wounds." "I'm here for you," Michael said, his voice steady and comforting. "We'll go together, and you don't have to go through it alone." The thought of having Michael by her side gave Lena a sense of relief, but as they drove to the old apartment, she couldn't shake the feeling of dread that settled in her stomach. When they arrived, the building seemed smaller than she remembered. The faded walls, the cracked windows, it all felt like a different life. Yet, it was a place where she had spent so much time in the past, trying to hold on to whatever semblance of normalcy she could. As they walked up the stairs to the old apartment, memories flooded Lena's mind. The quiet nights alone, the emptiness of the rooms that were supposed to be filled with love and laughter, but were instead filled with grief. She pushed the door open, and the familiar musty smell hit her, making her pause for a moment. "I can't believe this place is still here," she said quietly, her voice tinged with sadness. Michael stepped in behind her, his hand resting lightly on her back. "Do you want to take a moment?" he asked gently. "You don't have to rush this." Lena nodded, taking a deep breath as she stepped further into the apartment. Her eyes scanned the space, settling on the corner where she and Daniel had once sat, dreaming of their future. The memories, once painful, now seemed distant, almost unreal. She didn't recognize the woman she had been back then, the woman who had hoped so desperately for a perfect life. "I'm ready to grab the stuff and go," Lena said after a moment, wiping away a stray tear. "I don't need to stay here longer than I have to." Michael nodded, and together, they gathered the few belongings that Lena had left behind. It wasn't much, some books, a few old clothes, and the photo albums that held fragments of her past. As they left the apartment and locked the door behind them, Lena felt a strange sense of closure. She had closed that chapter of her life, and now it was time to move on. When they got back into the car, Michael turned to her. "How are you feeling?" he asked. Lena took a deep breath, a soft smile forming on her lips. "Better," she said. "I thought it would be harder, but I think I'm finally ready to let it go." "You've come so far," Michael said, his voice filled with admiration. "And I'm proud of you." For the first time in a long time, Lena felt proud of herself too. She wasn't the same person who had walked into Michael's life months ago, broken and unsure. She was someone who had found strength, who had rebuilt her life, and who was now ready to embrace the future. As they drove home, the tension that had once gripped her chest slowly began to ease. The weight of the past had not disappeared, but it no longer controlled her. The road ahead still had its challenges, but with Michael by her side, she knew she was ready to face them. When they arrived home, Michael helped Lena bring the boxes inside, and they sat down together on the couch, the evening stretching out in front of them. Lena felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. She had taken a huge step forward today, not just in moving on from her past, but in embracing the love and support that Michael had so freely offered her. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, she felt ready to take it on, with him by her side. As the days turned into weeks, Lena continued to adjust to the life she was building with Michael. The apartment, which had once felt like a place filled with sorrow, now felt like a home again. It was a new chapter for both her and Emma, and though the past still lingered in the corners of her mind, she had come to terms with it. Michael had always been there for her, and his steady support allowed her to slowly let go of the fear that had once dictated her every move. They spent weekends together, enjoying quiet moments, and Lena began to open up more, sharing parts of herself that she had long kept hidden. Emma was thriving, and Lena couldn't help but marvel at how far they had come since that first night in Michael's home. It wasn't perfect, but it was a fresh start, and it felt like the first time in a long time that things were falling into place. One evening, as they sat in the living room, Lena turned to Michael, her mind racing with thoughts she had been holding onto for weeks. "Michael," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "There's something I need to say." Michael looked at her, his expression warm and open. "What is it?" he asked. Lena took a deep breath, feeling her heart beat faster. "I'm ready," she said softly. "Ready to see where this goes. Ready to give myself a chance to love again." Michael's face lit up with a soft, tender smile, and Lena felt a wave of relief wash over her. It wasn't easy to admit, but it felt like the right moment. "You don't know how happy that makes me," Michael said, his voice full of emotion. "I've wanted this, wanted to build something real with you, but I never wanted to pressure you. I want you to know that I'm here for you, and I'll be here no matter what." Lena smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I know you are," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "And I want this too, Michael. I want to build something real with you." It was a moment of clarity, of honesty, and of hope. For the first time, Lena allowed herself to embrace the love she had been so afraid of. The following days were filled with small steps, building a relationship based on trust, understanding, and mutual respect. They began to make plans together for the future. Nothing too drastic, just simple things that brought them closer. Michael continued to support Lena in every way, giving her the freedom to grow and heal, but also reminding her that she didn't have to face life alone anymore. Lena had never imagined that she would find love again, especially after everything she had been through. But here she was, ready to take that leap, ready to open her heart to someone who had proven time and time again that he cared. As they spent more time together, Lena realized that she was beginning to trust again, something she had lost after Daniel's death. She had been afraid to let anyone in, but Michael had slowly but surely broken down the walls she had built around herself. It wasn't just the big gestures that moved her, it was the small things, the way he always checked in to make sure she was okay, the way he respected her space when she needed it, and the way he never gave up on her even when she felt like giving up on herself. One night, Michael took her to dinner at a small, cozy restaurant by the lake. It was one of those quiet places where time seemed to slow down, and the world outside didn't matter. As they sat across from each other, Lena felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in a long time. The soft candlelight flickered between them, and the air smelled of fresh herbs and warm bread. It was the kind of evening she had once only dreamed of, and now it was her reality. "I'm glad we're here," Lena said, her voice filled with quiet gratitude. Michael smiled, reaching across the table to take her hand. "So am I," he said. "I've been thinking about how far we've come, and I'm excited for what's ahead." Lena looked into his eyes, seeing nothing but sincerity. "Me too," she said softly. "I think we're ready for whatever comes next." The conversation shifted to lighter topics, But Lena couldn't help but feel that this was the beginning of something new. Something that had the potential to grow into the love she had always hoped for. After dinner, they took a walk by the lake. The moonlight shimmered on the water, casting a soft glow around them. The air was cool, but it felt refreshing, like a breath of fresh air after a long period of uncertainty. As they walked, Lena leaned into Michael, letting the warmth of his presence soothe her. She realized then that this was what it felt like to be truly loved, without conditions, without fear. Just love. The days turned into weeks, and Lena's life continued to evolve. Her relationship with Michael deepened, and she began to take more steps toward embracing the future they were building together. It wasn't without challenges. There were moments of doubt, moments when the fear of losing control threatened to resurface, but Lena learned to confront those fears head-on. She realized that love wasn't something to fear, it was something to embrace. And with Michael, she was learning how to do that. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Lena turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice steady but full of emotion. "I want to start fresh, completely. I want to be with you, Michael. I want this to be the beginning of something real, something lasting." Michael looked at her, his eyes soft with affection. "I've been waiting for you to say that," he said, his voice full of love. "And I'm here, ready to take that step with you." In that moment, Lena knew that she was ready. Ready to love, ready to build a future, and ready to face whatever life had in store, together with Michael by her side. As time went on, Lena and Michael's relationship continued to deepen. They had reached a place of mutual understanding and trust, and though they had faced their share of challenges, they both knew that they were stronger for it. The love that had once seemed uncertain and fragile had grown into something solid and undeniable. For the first time in a long time, Lena felt like she was truly living, not just surviving. Her job at the marketing firm had flourished, and her sense of independence was stronger than ever. She had built a life for herself, and now, she had the freedom to share that life with someone who truly cared for her. Michael had become more than just a partner. He was her confidant, her support, and the person she could always count on. The small moments they shared, like cooking dinner together, going for walks, or just sitting quietly, had become the foundation of their relationship. But as their love grew, so did the realization that they were ready for more. One evening, Michael invited Lena out for a special dinner at a quiet restaurant by the water. He had been planning it for weeks, wanting to create a memorable evening to celebrate everything they had built together. Lena had no idea what to expect, but as soon as they arrived at the restaurant, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. The soft glow of candlelight and the gentle sound of the water lapping at the shore created an atmosphere of tranquility. As they sat down at their table, Michael reached across and took her hand, his touch warm and comforting. "Lena," he said softly, looking into her eyes, "I've been thinking a lot about our future, about everything we've shared and everything still to come. And I just want to say that I'm ready for the next step. I want to build a life with you, fully, without hesitation." Lena felt her heart race at his words. She had known for some time now that this was where they were headed, but hearing him say it out loud made it feel so real, so tangible. "I'm ready too," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Michael's eyes softened, and he smiled. "You know, Lena, when I first met you, I had no idea where this would go. I just knew there was something special about you. And now, seeing how far we've come, how much we've shared, it's beyond anything I ever imagined." Lena squeezed his hand, her heart full. "I feel the same way. It's been a journey, and I'm so grateful for every step of it. You've helped me find myself again, and I can't imagine my life without you." The moment was perfect, and in that quiet space by the water, it felt like time had slowed down. It was a moment of realization for both of them. They had come a long way from the uncertain days when Lena had first entered Michael's life. The past was no longer an obstacle, but a part of their story, something that had shaped them but no longer defined them. After dinner, they walked along the shore, the moonlight casting a soft glow on the water. The world around them was peaceful, and for the first time in a long time, Lena felt like everything was falling into place. "I want to marry you, Lena," Michael said suddenly, his voice steady but full of emotion. Lena stopped in her tracks, her heart skipping a beat. She had always dreamed of finding love again, But never in a million years did she expect it to come like this, with someone who had been her rock through everything. "Are you serious?" she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Michael nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." Lena's heart swelled with joy, and without thinking, she threw her arms around him, holding him tightly. "Yes," she said, the word coming out so naturally that it surprised her. "Yes, I'll marry you." Michael laughed softly, pulling her into a kiss, the weight of the world lifting off both of their shoulders. The kiss was sweet and full of promise, a kiss that sealed their commitment to each other. They stood there for a long moment, just holding each other, allowing the reality of the moment to sink in. "I can't believe this is real," Lena said, her voice filled with wonder. "We've come so far, haven't we?" Michael smiled, brushing a lock of hair from her face. "We have, and this is just the beginning." They spent the rest of the evening talking about their future, making plans and dreaming together. Lena felt a peace she had never known before, knowing that she was no longer walking this journey alone. She had Michael by her side, and together, they were building something beautiful. The next few months flew by as they began to plan their wedding. It was a small, intimate ceremony, exactly how Lena had always imagined. Surrounded by family and close friends, they exchanged vows that spoke to the depth of their love and the strength of their commitment. The day was filled with joy, laughter, and tears of happiness as Lena walked down the aisle, her heart overflowing with love for the man who had become her everything. When the ceremony ended, Michael took Lena's hand, and they walked down the aisle together, ready to start this new chapter of their lives. The road ahead wasn't going to be perfect, but it was theirs to navigate together. And that was all they needed. As they celebrated their new beginning, Lena looked at Michael, her heart full of gratitude. She had found love again, found the strength to trust, and most importantly, found a partner who would stand by her side through whatever came next. The months following their engagement passed in a whirlwind of excitement and preparation. Lena and Michael had settled into their life together, and every day felt like a new beginning. They had moved into a larger apartment, one that was perfect for the family they were building. It wasn't just a place to live anymore. It was their home, filled with laughter, warmth, and a sense of peace that Lena had never thought possible. As the wedding day drew closer, the couple found themselves making plans and decisions, each one bringing them closer to the life they envisioned. It was a busy time, but it was also a time of reflection for Lena. She thought about how much had changed in the past year, how far she had come from the woman she had been when she first met Michael. She was no longer the grieving widow, lost in her sorrow. She was a woman who had learned to love again, to trust, and to embrace the future. Michael had become not just her partner, but her best friend, her confidant, and the person she could rely on no matter what. They had faced challenges together, both the quiet, personal struggles and the external obstacles that life had thrown at them. But each challenge had only strengthened their bond, proving to both of them that they were meant to be together. One afternoon, as they sat in their cozy living room, Lena turned to Michael with a smile, her heart full of warmth. "I'm really glad we're doing this," she said, her voice full of gratitude. "Building this life together, I mean. It feels right, you know." Michael looked at her with a smile that reached his eyes, a smile that made Lena's heart flutter. "I feel the same way. I never imagined we'd be here. But now that we are, I wouldn't want it any other way." Lena's thoughts drifted to their upcoming wedding. It was going to be small, just a few close friends and family, a simple ceremony to celebrate their love. It wasn't the big, extravagant affair she had once dreamed of, but that was fine. What mattered was that they were committing to each other, with no pretense, no grand gestures, just a promise of a future built together. "I've been thinking about the vows," Lena said, her voice thoughtful. "What we want to say to each other on that day. What promises we'll make." Michael nodded, his expression serious yet tender. "I think the vows should come from the heart," he said. "They don't need to be perfect. What matters is that they're real, and that we mean them." Lena smiled softly. She loved how simple and sincere Michael was. "I want to promise you that I'll always be here," she said, her voice steady. "That I'll love you, even when things get hard. I want to promise that we'll face everything together, no matter what." Michael reached out and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "And I'll promise the same," he said. "That no matter what happens, I'll be there. You and Emma are my world, and I'll always protect you. I'll always support you, and I'll love you more every day." Lena's heart swelled with emotion, and she felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. It was a simple promise, but it was the most beautiful thing she had ever heard. "I love you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Michael smiled, his eyes soft with affection. "I love you too." The days flew by in a blur of preparations, and before they knew it, the day of their wedding had arrived. It was a perfect day, sunshine and blue skies, the air filled with the scent of blooming flowers. Lena woke up early, feeling a sense of calm that she hadn't expected. She had thought she would be nervous, but instead, she felt at peace. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment when everything they had worked for, everything they had built, would come to fruition. As she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her dress, she felt a sense of gratitude wash over her. She had found a love that was patient, kind, and unwavering. Michael had shown her that she was worthy of love, and he had taught her that it was okay to trust again. She had learned that love wasn't about perfection. It was about acceptance, commitment, and the willingness to grow together. When it was time to leave for the ceremony, Lena felt a flutter of excitement in her chest. Michael was waiting for her, and she couldn't wait to see him. The ceremony was held in a small garden behind Michael's family's house. It was intimate, surrounded by their closest friends and family. As Lena walked down the aisle, her heart raced. She saw Michael standing at the altar, his eyes filled with love and anticipation. He looked more handsome than ever, his smile wide as he saw her. When Lena reached him, he took her hands in his, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. The officiant began the ceremony, but Lena's focus was on Michael, on the man who had become her everything. When it was time for their vows, Lena felt her heart pounding in her chest. She looked into Michael's eyes, feeling all the love and gratitude she had for him. "Michael," she said, her voice steady, "I promise to love you every day, to be there for you in all things, to face the future with you, no matter what it brings. I promise to be your partner, your friend, and your biggest supporter for the rest of my life." Michael's eyes glistened as he held her hands. "Lena," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I promise to love you with all my heart, to support you through all the highs and lows, and to build a life with you that's full of joy, laughter, and love. I promise to stand by you, no matter where life takes us." When they exchanged rings, it felt like the final piece of their journey falling into place. They were no longer just two people trying to figure out life. They were partners, ready to face everything that came their way, together. The rest of the day was filled with celebration, love, and joy. It was everything Lena had ever wanted, and more. As she danced with Michael under the stars, surrounded by those she loved, she realized that this was her new beginning. This was her happily ever after. She had found her place in the world, and with Michael by her side, she knew that together, they could overcome anything. The future was bright, and for the first time, Lena felt truly at peace. The weeks following their wedding were filled with a quiet, profound happiness. Lena and Michael had returned from their honeymoon, a brief getaway to the coast, where they had spent their days exploring the ocean, strolling through quiet towns, and savoring each other's company without the distractions of daily life. It was everything they had dreamed of and more. They returned to their home, now officially theirs in a way that felt deeper than just the legalities. The walls, once just a place to sleep, had become a sanctuary of memories they were building together, and it felt like their little world was finally coming into focus. Back in the rhythm of daily life, things continued to go well. Michael continued his work, though now, there was an added sense of balance. He was more at ease, knowing that Lena was thriving in her own career as well. Her confidence at the marketing firm had grown, and she had even started taking on more leadership roles, which filled her with pride. Their life, though simple, was rich with love, respect, and shared goals. But there was one thing that had been on both of their minds: building a family. They had talked about it in passing over the months, always saying it would come when the time was right. But now, the conversation was becoming more frequent. One evening, as they sat in the living room, Michael turned to Lena with a thoughtful look. "I've been thinking," he started, his voice more serious than usual, "about us, about the future. We've been doing this for a while now, and I think we're ready." Lena looked at him, her heart beating a little faster. Ready for what? She asked, a curious smile on her face. Michael reached for her hand, his eyes soft but determined. I think it's time we start thinking about having kids, he said, his voice steady but full of warmth. I've seen how amazing you are with Emma, and I know you'd be such an incredible mom. I want that with you, Lena. I want to build that family we've talked about. The words hung in the air for a moment, and Lena felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness stir within her. She had always wanted children, and the idea of building a family with Michael felt like a natural next step. Yet, the thought of it still brought up fears, the kind of fear she thought she had left behind. She had always feared losing the control she had fought so hard to regain after Daniel's death, and the idea of being responsible for another life, another soul, felt overwhelming. But then she looked at Michael, and she saw how steady, how sure he was. She saw the love in his eyes, and in that moment, she knew that they could face anything together. I think I'm ready too, she said, her voice soft but filled with certainty. I want to build that family with you. Michael's face lit up, a smile spreading across his features as he leaned over to kiss her forehead. I know we'll be great parents. I just have a feeling about it. Lena smiled back, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. They didn't have to rush into anything, but it felt right, this idea of expanding their family. Over the next few months, they began making plans. They didn't rush it, but the discussions were no longer abstract. They were concrete, real. They started talking about how they would adjust their lives, how they would prepare their home for the new addition. They talked about names, about schools, about how they wanted to raise their children. It was a dream taking shape, and each conversation only brought them closer together. But as the idea of starting a family became more real, Lena found herself feeling a bit anxious. The fear that she had once had about losing control began to resurface. She had always been independent, and the thought of changing that, of needing someone else more than she already did, was terrifying. She tried to push the feelings aside, telling herself that she was ready, that she had Michael's support, and everything would be fine. But deep down, she worried. One night, after dinner, Lena found herself sitting alone on the porch, looking out at the stars. It was a quiet moment, but the uncertainty in her heart wouldn't let her rest. Michael, sensing that something was off, quietly joined her. He sat down next to her and took her hand in his. What's going on? He asked, his voice gentle, but filled with concern. Lena took a deep breath, trying to steady her emotions. I'm just nervous, she admitted, her voice wavering. I want this, I really do, but part of me is scared. I've always been so independent, and the thought of becoming a mother, of not being in control anymore, it scares me. Michael's gaze softened as he listened, and he squeezed her hand gently. Lena, he said softly, it's okay to be scared. But you don't have to face this alone. I'll be right there with you, every step of the way. And you're not losing control. You're gaining a family, something to love and care for. We'll do it together, and I promise you, I'll always be there. Lena turned to face him, her heart swelling with emotion. I know you will, she whispered. And that's what makes this all feel possible. With you, I feel like I can do anything. Michael leaned in and kissed her softly on the forehead. We're in this together, Lena. And no matter what happens, we'll figure it out as we go. I'm not going anywhere. The warmth of his words, the steadiness of his presence, eased the anxiety that had been gripping her. She didn't have to have all the answers right now, and she didn't have to do it alone. They were a team, and together, they would face whatever the future held. As the weeks turned into months, Lena's fears slowly began to fade. She embraced the idea of motherhood with a new sense of excitement, knowing that she was supported by Michael's unwavering love and commitment. The future was still uncertain, but with Michael by her side, she was ready to embrace it, ready to build the family they had always dreamed of. Months passed, and Lena and Michael's life together continued to unfold beautifully. The sense of peace and stability that had gradually settled into their home was something neither of them had taken for granted. Their life together was full of love, laughter, and even the occasional challenge that only served to strengthen their bond. They had grown together in a way that felt natural, comfortable, and deeply meaningful. As the seasons changed, Lena's pregnancy became the center of their focus. Michael was more attentive than ever, making sure Lena was as comfortable as possible, supporting her through the ups and downs of pregnancy with patience and understanding. The moments they shared, from discussing baby names to decorating the nursery, were filled with joy and anticipation. Lena couldn't believe how far she had come from the woman she once was, afraid to love, hesitant to trust. Now, with Michael by her side, she felt ready for this next chapter. As her due date neared, the excitement began to build. They spent their evenings preparing, taking walks, and talking about the future. Lena was growing increasingly eager to meet their child, but also, there was a lingering nervousness. What would it be like to become a mother? Would she be enough for her child? Would she be able to balance everything? Michael was always there, reassuring her that they would do it together every step of the way. One evening as Lena sat on the couch with her feet propped up, Michael sat beside her, a soft smile on his face. "Are you nervous?" he asked, his voice full of warmth. Lena nodded slowly, her hand resting on her swollen belly. "I'm excited, but I can't help but feel a little overwhelmed. This is really happening." Michael chuckled softly, taking her hand in his. "It is happening, and you're going to be an incredible mother, Lena. I have no doubt about it." Lena smiled, comforted by his words, though the nerves still lingered. "I just want to do it right. I want to give our child everything they need, but also, I want to be the best version of myself. It feels like a big responsibility." "You've got this," Michael said, his voice full of confidence. "And I'll be right here, every step of the way." The reassurance in his voice grounded her. She knew they would face this new chapter as a team, just like they had done with everything else. The weeks leading up to the birth felt like a blur of excitement and nervous anticipation. Lena attended regular checkups. Michael was always by her side, helping with anything she needed, and they both enjoyed the quiet moments together, knowing that life as they knew it was about to change in the most beautiful way. Finally, the day came. It was a cool morning when Lena's water broke, and the rush of excitement hit both of them like a wave. Michael immediately jumped into action, calling the hospital and helping Lena get ready. His calm, steady presence was a source of comfort for Lena as they made their way to the hospital. It was an exciting, overwhelming, and slightly terrifying moment, but Michael kept reassuring her that everything would be okay. "We're in this together," he repeated over and over. When they arrived at the hospital, things moved quickly. Lena was taken to a room, and the medical staff worked efficiently to make her as comfortable as possible. Michael never left her side, holding her hand, whispering words of encouragement, and reminding her of everything they had been through together. Hours passed, and though Lena was exhausted, she felt a surge of strength with each passing minute. She focused on Michael, on the love they shared, and the new life that was about to be brought into the world. When the moment finally arrived, the intensity of the experience was overwhelming, but the joy that filled the room when their baby was born was indescribable. Their little one, perfect and healthy, was placed in Lena's arms, and in that instant, everything in the world seemed to fade away. It was just them, the three of them, starting this new chapter as a family. Tears filled Lena's eyes as she looked at the tiny bundle in her arms, her heart overflowing with love and gratitude. "We did it," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Michael leaned over and kissed her gently on the forehead. "We did," he said softly. "And this is just the beginning." They spent the next few days in the hospital, basking in the joy of their new arrival. Michael was an incredible father from the very start, caring for both Lena and their baby with tenderness and devotion. Lena, though tired and overwhelmed at times, couldn't stop staring at their child, amazed by the tiny person they had created together. It was a love like no other. When they finally left the hospital and returned to their home, it felt like a new chapter of their life was beginning. They had already built a beautiful life together, but this was something entirely different. Their family was now complete. The next few months passed in a blur of sleepless nights, feedings, and diaper changes, but through it all, Lena and Michael were more in love than ever. They took turns caring for their baby, supporting each other through the exhausting yet rewarding experience of parenthood. With each passing day, Lena felt more confident as a mother, and more certain that she and Michael could handle anything life threw their way. They were a team, and with every milestone, every laugh, every quiet moment, their bond grew even stronger. Looking at their baby, Lena realized that all the fears she once had, the ones that held her back from fully embracing love, motherhood, and the future, had faded. She was exactly where she was meant to be, and she couldn't wait to see what the next chapter of their journey would bring. As the months went by, Lena and Michael's life became more routine, but in the best possible way. Their home, now with a growing toddler, was a whirlwind of energy and joy. Baby laughter echoed through the halls, toys were strewn across the living room, and the constant hum of family life filled every corner. Lena marveled at how quickly time had passed. It seemed like only yesterday that she was nervously awaiting the arrival of their baby, unsure of what kind of mother she would be, and now here they were, navigating parenthood with love, patience, and a newfound sense of confidence. Michael, as always, was an incredible partner and father. He was deeply involved in every aspect of their child's life, from feeding and diaper changes to late-night lullabies. He never once complained about the sleepless nights or the long days. For Michael, being a father was a natural extension of the love he had for Lena, and it was clear that he was enjoying every moment of it. They had also found a new rhythm with their careers. Lena had settled into her role at the marketing firm, where her colleagues now looked to her for guidance. She had proven herself, not just as a professional, but as a leader. She was proud of how far she had come, especially given the circumstances she had faced only a year ago. And then there was Michael. His business was growing steadily, and the stress of running it was starting to ease as he found more balance between work and family. They both knew that life wasn't going to be perfect. There would always be challenges, long hours at work, parenting struggles, moments when one of them felt overwhelmed or unsure. But they also knew that they could face anything as long as they were together. One afternoon, after Lena had finished up at work, she and Michael sat down to talk about their future. With the baby now a toddler, they found themselves contemplating new goals and dreams. "I've been thinking," Michael said, his voice calm but serious. "We've built such a beautiful life together, but I think we're ready for the next step. We've always talked about expanding our family. Do you think it's the right time for that?" Lena looked at him, her heart swelling. It was something they had discussed before, but now, with their lives more settled, it felt different. She had always wanted a big family. She had dreamed of children running through their home, filling it with laughter and life. But after everything she had been through, she was careful. She needed to be. Sure, not just for her, but for Michael and their little one too. "I think I'm ready," she said finally, after a moment of thought. "I want to give Emma a sibling, and I want to build our family even more. But I also want to make sure we're both ready for that next challenge." Michael smiled, his eyes warm and understanding. "We don't need to rush, but I'm glad we're on the same page. I think we're both in a place now where we can handle whatever comes our way, together." As they sat there, holding hands, Lena realized how far they had come. She was no longer the woman who doubted herself, who feared the future. She had found strength in her love for Michael and their child, and now she was ready to embrace whatever life had in store for them. But as the conversation about expanding their family unfolded, Lena also found herself reflecting on the small things, the way Michael had always supported her, the way he had stood by her through every challenge, and the way he had never once wavered in his love for her. She knew that adding another child to their family would bring new challenges, but she also knew they would tackle them together, just as they had always done. The next few months were filled with even more excitement as Lena and Michael made plans for the future. They started researching homes with more space for their growing family, discussed new career goals, and dreamed about the life they wanted to create for their children. They found themselves making plans for a second baby, and every conversation brought them closer to the life they had always wanted. But even as they planned, Lena knew one thing. She couldn't have done any of it without Michael. He had been her rock, her constant support, and her greatest partner in every sense. The love they shared had transformed not only their lives, but their hearts. One evening, after the baby had gone to bed, Lena sat down with Michael on the couch, their hands intertwined. "You know," she said softly, looking at him, "I never thought I'd get to a place like this. I never thought I could find happiness again after everything. But with you, I have. I'm finally in a place where I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be." Michael smiled, his heart full. "I'm right there with you, Lena. We've been through so much, but we've come out stronger. And now, we get to share this journey together, with a family and a future that's all our own." They sat in silence for a moment, just holding each other, grateful for everything they had built. The future was bright, and for the first time in a long time, Lena felt ready to face whatever came next. With Michael by her side, she knew they could accomplish anything. Their love had grown into something beautiful, something strong and unshakable, and no matter what the future held, they would continue to walk through it hand in hand. As the months rolled by, Lena and Michael found themselves settling into a comfortable rhythm. Their lives were filled with love, laughter, and the occasional chaos that came with raising a toddler. The dream they had talked about so many times, building a family, was finally taking shape in ways they had always hoped for. Their home was full, not just with furniture and possessions, but with the sense of family they had created. The nursery they had once envisioned for a second child was finally filled with the gentle sounds of a new baby's cries, and both of them reveled in the warmth of the growing family. But with the arrival of their second child came new challenges. Lena, who had been such a steady force during her pregnancy, found herself feeling a little overwhelmed as she balanced the demands of caring for a newborn while still managing the needs of their toddler, Emma. Michael, as always, was a pillar of support, jumping in to help wherever he could, changing diapers, soothing the baby, and giving Lena the space she needed to rest and recover. Still, the exhaustion of the early months began to wear on both of them. They had always managed to share the load, but now, with two little ones at home, their time was stretched thinner than ever. Despite the exhaustion, there was a quiet joy in the chaos. Watching Emma interact with her baby sibling was a beautiful reminder of how far they had come. The house was no longer just a place to sleep. It was a home, filled with the sounds of family life. Lena found herself stealing moments of quiet when she could, sipping coffee early in the morning before the world woke up, reading to the children before bed, and finding small pockets of peace in between the busyness of life. But every time she looked at Michael, she felt a surge of love. Even though their days were packed with responsibilities, they still made time for each other. They had become experts at finding moments of connection amidst the daily hustle. Sometimes, it was a quick kiss in the kitchen while cooking dinner. Other times, it was simply holding hands as they watched their children play. They had built something solid, something that was bigger than just the two of them. But even with the joy of their growing family, there were moments of doubt. Lena had always been the kind of person who needed to feel like she had everything under control, and sometimes, the demands of motherhood left her feeling like she was barely keeping her head above water. She started to wonder if she was doing enough for her children, if she was balancing her responsibilities in a way that was setting a good example for them. One evening, after the children had finally fallen asleep, Lena sat down on the couch, feeling the weight of the day settle on her shoulders. Michael, noticing the tension in her posture, sat beside her and took her hand. "What's on your mind?" he asked, his voice soft and understanding. Lena sighed, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I just feel like I'm not doing enough," she admitted quietly. "I'm trying to keep everything together, but sometimes it feels like I'm falling short. I want to be the best mother I can be for Emma and the baby, and I want to give them everything they need, but I'm scared that I'm not doing it right." Michael's hand gently rubbed her back, his touch reassuring. "You're doing more than enough, Lena. You're an incredible mother. I see the way you care for our children, the way you love them. I know it's not always easy, but you're doing an amazing job. And you don't have to do it alone. We're a team, remember?" His words, though simple, cut through the self-doubt that had clouded Lena's mind. She had always carried the weight of the world on her shoulders, trying to do everything herself, but in that moment, she realized she didn't have to. They were a team, and as much as she needed to give, she also needed to let Michael help carry the load. She looked up at him, her eyes full of gratitude. "I don't know what I'd do without you," she whispered. Michael smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "You'll never have to find out. I'm here. We're in this together." That reassurance was enough to quiet the doubts in her mind. She didn't need to be perfect. She didn't need to have everything figured out. She just needed to keep moving forward, trusting that, together, they could handle whatever came their way. As the days passed, Lena found a new sense of peace. The demands of motherhood were still there, but they didn't feel as overwhelming anymore. She and Michael continued to find their rhythm, learning how to navigate the challenges of raising two children while still nurturing their own relationship. There were hard days, days when the exhaustion seemed unrelenting, days when the house felt like it was never clean enough or the to-do list too long. But there were also moments of pure joy. Watching Emma and the baby grow, Seeing them share smiles and laughter made everything worth it. One afternoon, while they were all playing in the yard, Lena stopped for a moment to watch her family. Michael was holding the baby while Emma ran around, laughing as she played. In that moment, everything felt right. She had built a life she was proud of. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was hers. The future still held its uncertainties, but with Michael by her side and their children surrounding them, Lena knew they could face whatever came next. They had already proven that together, they could handle anything. And for the first time in a long time, Lena felt like she had found a sense of balance between motherhood, love, and the pursuit of her own happiness. It wasn't always easy, but it was hers, and it was enough. As the years passed, Lena and Michael's life together continued to evolve. Their children, now growing into curious toddlers, brought new layers of joy and occasional chaos to their home. It wasn't always easy, of course. Balancing careers, maintaining a strong relationship, and raising 2 children under 3 was a lot to manage. But through it all, there was an underlying sense of satisfaction, a feeling that they were exactly where they were meant to be. The demands of life were often overwhelming, but they faced them with a kind of quiet determination. Lena found herself reflecting on how much had changed. She had come a long way from the woman who had once been filled with doubts about her worth, her ability to love again, and her capacity for motherhood. Now, she was a mother of 2, a loving wife, and a woman who had embraced the beautiful mess of family life. Still, as much as they had achieved, there were times when Lena found herself feeling stretched thin. The pressures of being a mother, partner, and professional woman could be heavy. There were days when she felt like she was losing herself in the process of trying to give everything to everyone. Michael, ever supportive, noticed when she was struggling. One evening, after the children had gone to bed, he found Lena sitting on the couch, staring out the window, her brow furrowed with exhaustion. Without saying a word, he sat next to her and wrapped his arm around her shoulder. "How are you holding up?" he asked softly. Lena leaned into him, sighing deeply. "I don't know," she admitted. "I feel like I'm being pulled in 100 different directions. I want to be the best mom, the best wife, and I want to do my job well, but sometimes it feels like I'm failing at all of it." Michael's voice was gentle but firm. "You're not failing, Lena. You're doing the best you can, and that's more than enough." She looked up at him, her eyes tired but filled with gratitude. "I know, but sometimes it doesn't feel like enough. I'm afraid I'm losing myself in the process. I used to have time for me, time to just think and recharge, but now it feels like there's no time for that. I don't want to lose who I am." Michael kissed the top of her head, holding her a little tighter. "I get it," he said, "but you don't have to do this alone. You never have to lose yourself. You're still the woman I fell in love with, and I want you to take care of yourself too. Maybe it's time we find a way to make room for that." Lena's heart warmed at his words, but the reality of it still felt distant. She had spent so much time trying to meet everyone's needs that she had forgotten to meet her own. Michael could see it in her eyes, the way she was giving everything but herself. "What if we start with something small?" he suggested. "Maybe a few hours every week where you do something just for you. A hobby, a walk, time to read or write, anything that helps you feel like yourself again." Lena smiled, a weight lifting slightly from her shoulders. "I think I'd like that." Over the next few weeks, Lena made a conscious effort to carve out time for herself. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. She found solace in the quiet moments, whether it was a walk in the park with just her thoughts, a yoga class in the morning before the family woke up, or simply sitting with a book and a cup of tea. The small breaks gave her the space she needed to recharge and reflect. It wasn't about escaping motherhood or her responsibilities. It was about refueling so that she could continue to show up as the best version of herself for her family. Michael, too, recognized the importance of maintaining his own sense of self. He took more time to spend with his friends, reconnected with old hobbies, and made sure to check in with his own needs. Together, they found a balance, one that allowed them both to grow as individuals, while still growing together as a family. One Saturday afternoon, when the kids were napping, Michael suggested they take a break and head to the local park for a quiet walk together. It was a rare moment of stillness, and they both cherished it. As they strolled along the path, hand in hand, Lena turned to Michael. "I think I'm starting to get the hang of it," she said, her voice filled with quiet confidence. "Finding balance, that is." Michael smiled at her, his eyes full of pride. I knew you would. You've always been stronger than you give yourself credit for. They paused at a bench by the lake, watching as the sunlight danced on the water. It's nice to just be here, Lena said, her voice soft. To just breathe and not feel like I have to be everything all at once. Michael nodded, squeezing her hand. You don't have to be everything, Lena. You're already more than enough. In that moment, Lena realized how true his words were. She didn't need to be perfect. She didn't need to have it all figured out. She was already giving everything she had to her family, and that was enough. Her heart swelled with love as she looked at Michael, grateful for his unwavering support and for the life they had built together. They were a team, always would be, and no matter what the future held, they would face it together. The next few years brought new joys and challenges. Emma started school, the family moved into a new house with more space, and they welcomed a third child into the world. But through it all, Lena and Michael remained anchored in their love and commitment to each other. They learned, grew, and adapted, but the foundation they had built over the years remained unshaken. And as their children grew, Lena realized that she was not only the woman who had once struggled with doubt, but a mother, a partner, and a woman who had found her way back to herself. She had built a life she was proud of, a life filled with love, laughter, and the quiet moments of peace that made it all worth it. As the years continued to pass, Lena and Michael's life together flourished in ways they had never imagined. Their family had grown even more, their bond deepened, and the journey they had shared had brought them closer than ever. With 3 children now, life was undoubtedly busy, but it was a beautiful kind of chaos. The house was often filled with the sounds of laughter, the soft shuffle of little feet running through the halls, and the occasional cry or giggle that seemed to echo through the walls. Every day, Lena marveled at how much they had accomplished. Together, they had created a family, one that was grounded in love, trust, and mutual respect. As their children grew, the challenges of parenting evolved. The sleepless nights of infancy had given way to the demands of early childhood, endless questions, energetic playtime, and the constant balancing act of ensuring each child felt seen and heard. But through it all, Lena and Michael faced it side by side, always there for each other, always finding ways to support one another. As their children reached different milestones, the couple would find themselves reflecting on how far they had come since those early days when they were still learning to navigate life as a family. They often talked about the future and the dreams they had for their children. Michael had always been a constant source of stability for Lena, and his approach to life was simple yet profound. Take things one step at a time, enjoy the small moments, and never stop growing together. His support had allowed her to flourish, both as a mother and as a woman who was no longer afraid to chase her own dreams. Lena had always been someone who took pride in her independence, but motherhood had changed her in ways she hadn't expected. She had learned that being a mother didn't mean losing herself. It meant finding new ways to love, to grow, and to nurture. As she watched her children, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. They had become her world, and every day with them felt like a gift. But even with the joys of parenthood, there were still moments when Lena felt like she was struggling to keep it all together. The balance between caring for her family, her career, and herself was a delicate one. Sometimes, she would find herself questioning whether she was doing enough for her children or if she was taking enough time for herself. Michael, ever in tune with her, could always sense when she was feeling overwhelmed. One evening, after they had put the children to bed, he sat down next to her, sensing the quiet tension in her posture. "You're quiet tonight," he said gently, his voice soft and concerned. "What's going on?" Lena hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should voice the insecurities that had been quietly building up inside her. Sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I try to be everything for everyone, but I wonder if I'm losing myself in the process. I want to be a great mom, a great partner, and I want to give my best to everything, but sometimes it feels like I'm falling short." Michael turned to her, his expression soft but firm. "Lena," he said, his voice steady and full of warmth, "you are doing more than enough. You're an amazing mother, an incredible wife, and you're giving everything you have to this family. But I also know how hard you work, how much you try to balance. And I think you need to take a step back and remember that you deserve to take care of yourself, too." Lena let out a deep breath, feeling a small weight lift from her chest as Michael's words resonated with her. She had always put everyone else first, thinking it was the right thing to do, but in doing so, she had neglected her own needs. Michael's reminder was a wake-up call, a gentle nudge to take care of herself in the same way she took care of her family. "I don't know how to do that," she confessed. "It feels selfish to take time for me when there's so much to do." Michael smiled softly and placed a hand on hers. "It's not selfish, Lena. It's necessary. You're the heart of this family. And if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to take care of the ones you love. You've got to fill your own cup, too." It was a simple sentiment, but it made all the difference. Lena nodded, feeling the truth of his words settle deep within her. She didn't have to sacrifice her own well-being in order to be a good mother or partner. Over the next few weeks, she made a conscious effort to prioritize herself more. It wasn't easy at first, but she began taking small steps, whether it was spending an hour reading a book in the morning before the kids woke up, or taking a walk alone to clear her mind. It was about finding moments of peace, moments that allowed her to reconnect with herself. She also leaned on Michael more, trusting him to share the load of parenting so that she could recharge. As Lena made time for herself, she noticed how much more present she was with her children and with Michael. She wasn't as overwhelmed or stretched thin. Instead, she felt like she had the energy and the focus to truly enjoy the small moments with her family. And the more she took care of herself, the more she felt like she was able to show up fully for those she loved. One Saturday afternoon, as the sun began to set, Michael surprised Lena with a quiet dinner at home, just the two of them. The children were with a babysitter, and Michael had taken care of everything. As they sat down to eat, the atmosphere was peaceful, filled with love and quiet conversation. "I've been thinking," Michael said, his eyes meeting hers. "We've built something really special, haven't we?" Lena smiled, her heart full. "Yes, we have. It hasn't always been easy, but it's been worth every single moment." Michael nodded, a soft smile tugging at his lips. "I think the best part is that we keep growing, together. Every day, every challenge, every moment. And I wouldn't want to go through it with anyone else." Lena reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "Neither would I," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. They sat there for a while, simply enjoying each other's company, the quiet hum of their life together grounding them. The journey wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and every step along the way, they had built something unbreakable. The future, though still uncertain in some ways, felt full of possibility, and with Michael by her side, Lena knew that no matter what came next, they would face it together. And that, more than anything, was all she needed. As time went on, Lena and Michael's life continued to be a testament to the power of love, resilience, and partnership. Their children, now growing older, brought new adventures into their lives, school events, extracurricular activities, and the constant evolution of parenthood. Through it all, the family remained close-knit, always finding ways to support each other in the midst of the everyday hustle. Lena had come a long way since the days when she first entered Michael's life. Back then, she had been a woman full of uncertainty, grappling with the weight of loss, fear, and the challenge of rebuilding her life. Now, she was confident, balanced, and proud of the life she had created. She had learned to embrace motherhood and partnership in ways she had never expected. She had discovered that true strength wasn't just about pushing through difficulties. It was about knowing when to lean on others, when to ask for help, and when to take time for herself. Michael had been her steady rock, the one person who had never wavered in his commitment to her. His unwavering support had allowed her to heal, to love again, and to build the life she had always dreamed of. Together, they had created a home filled with laughter, love, and memories. Their relationship was strong, rooted in trust, respect, and a deep understanding of each other's needs. They had learned to grow together, to support each other through challenges, and to celebrate the victories, big and small. Their journey was not without its struggles, but those struggles had only served to deepen their connection. They had faced financial uncertainties, the chaos of raising children, moments of self-doubt, and the pressures of balancing careers and family. Yet, every time they encountered a challenge, they faced it side by side. As the years passed, their children became more independent, and Lena and Michael found themselves with more time for each other. It wasn't always easy to adjust to the changing dynamics of parenthood, but they took it in stride, finding new ways to nurture their relationship and keep the romance alive. They took small trips together, rediscovered old hobbies, and spent evenings talking about their dreams and plans for the future. Lena had come to realize that love was not a one-time declaration. It was an ongoing process, a choice to show up every day for each other. She knew that life would continue to present its challenges, but she also knew that as long as they were together, they could handle anything that came their way. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, watching the sunset, Michael took Lena's hand in his. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" he said softly. Lena smiled, her heart full of love. "Yes, we have. It's been an incredible journey." Michael nodded, his gaze focused on the horizon. "And we're just getting started. There's so much more to experience, to discover, and to build together." Lena leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. "I'm so grateful for everything," she said quietly. "For you, for our family, for the life we've built." Michael kissed the top of her head. "We've created something beautiful, Lena, and I wouldn't change a thing." The future was still full of possibilities, and Lena felt a renewed sense of excitement for what was yet to come. They didn't know exactly what the future held, but they knew that whatever it was, they would face it together as a family. They had built a life founded on love, trust, and resilience, and that was a foundation strong enough to weather any storm. As they continued their journey through life, Lena and Michael knew that their greatest adventure was still ahead of them. They had come so far, but they also knew that there was always more to discover, more to experience, and more to love. And with each other by their side, they were ready to face whatever came next, hand in hand, heart to heart, for the rest of their lives. In this heartwarming journey, we follow the transformation of a woman's life from uncertainty and grief to love, hope, and family. With the support of her dedicated partner, they overcome the struggles of parenthood, career, and self-doubt, building a life filled with joy, love, and resilience. Their story, intertwined with love and determination, serves as an inspiring example of how to face challenges together and grow stronger. Along the way, the couple learns to balance their personal dreams with the demands of raising a family. As their children grow, the couple finds ways to keep the romance alive, rediscovering their bond and the importance of self-care in maintaining a healthy, loving relationship. This journey is a perfect example of how love, commitment, and perseverance can turn struggles into triumphs. Alongside this journey, the concept of success, often portrayed in Millionaire stories, serves as a backdrop to the values of family, dedication, and love. These Millionaire stories reveal not just financial success, but also the deeper fulfillment that comes from love and connection. In this tale, the couple's unwavering support for one another mirrors the kind of enduring partnership that can be found in the most inspiring Millionaire stories. These Millionaire stories are not just about wealth, but about the wealth of relationships, the richness found in love, and the treasures of family. Through their story, they discover that life's most valuable moments come not from material success, but from the bonds that are formed and the family they have built together. This story is a testament to the fact that true Millionaire stories are those of love, sacrifice, and the unwavering strength of family.